Hi, it's Zoe with Paranormal Extraction, and guess what? Today we have the author of the Crone, J.M. Smith. He is globally known, and I am so excited to have him on today because he's not only going to be talking about his book, but he's also going to be talking about his paranormal experiences. Hi, Joey.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Zoe. Good morning.
Good morning. And happy belated Thanksgiving. Actually, it's only a day before, so we're doing this while everyone else is out shopping.
Exactly, catching those Black Friday sales.
Yeah, not me.
Right, me either.
No, we're right here, right now. We're doing what we love to do. So
Exactly.
So Joey, why don't you tell me a little bit? I know that you're globally known now about the book The Crone that's out, as well as I know you're going to have book 2 and book 3 coming, or 1 is already out.
And book 4.
And book 4.
Yes, it was. I was excited. This was my first book, my first endeavor into the writing world. So I went head first. Didn't even test the waters to see if they were warm. I just did it, and lo and behold, I guess I got lucky. My little book took off. If you Google The Crone Book 1 by J.M. Smith, you will find I'm in Japan, Switzerland, Germany. I've got a big following in the UK, also in Germany and in Spain, believe it or not. And so it wound up going everywhere, this little book. It's been more places than I have. And I haven't even been out of Las Vegas that much.
Awesome.
So tell us, that's just absolutely amazing and fantastic because, we talked a little bit about your personal journey, how this started, and how wonderful it's been, and now how successful you are, and you have an agent, and I don't even know what to say. You're kind of like my guru right now, speaking to you about this. But why don't you tell us a little bit about The Crone and what it's about?
Sure. In this story, the characters that I chose, one of my main characters, a heroine, is a 17-year-old Down syndrome, high-functioning Down syndrome teen who is, she is caught in the middle of between the here and the there, like I like to say. She gets thrust into this world, not of her own doing, but because the family has decided to retire and move into a small town from, they're leaving the big city of Los Angeles and going to a small town. The neighbor next door just happens to be the Crone of the story and is the one causing all the paranormal chaos. So her family and her are thrust into this spider web of intrigue, mystery, paranormal, and you wind up having to untangle the story as each chapter goes along. Now, each chapter does have a cliffhanger. Each book has a cliffhanger. And this is a story that's told in 4 parts.
Wow. That's just absolutely amazing. It sounds incredible. I haven't read the whole book yet, but when is book 2? Is book 2 out right now?
Book 2 is going to be out on January 29th, and so you'll be able to get that soon. I did sign with the new publisher, which is my advantage because they are just being so wonderful to me. And so they're going to re-release book 1 along with book 2. And then I plan on releasing book 3 in 6 months after January.
Wow. So, and then is book 4 in the making?
Book 4 is already finished. Believe it or not, before I even received a publisher, I even signed with a publisher, or anybody even noticed me, all 4 books have been written.
Wow. And you wrote all 4 books in what, a year, you said?
I would say it probably a little over a year.
Wow. Yeah. That's a lot of writing to do. That's a lot of time.
Well, I had nothing to do. I had a major surgery and I could not move. I was just stuck in a chair. And so I decided, that you get tired of what's going on TV and everything. So I just decided to sit down with a notebook and just started jotting down, little what was going on in my mind. And then lo and behold, 4 chapters later, I thought, this could turn into something. So I started investigating on, what publishers look for, how to write a book, and I just went about it. It was the blind leading the blind, but I'm learning as I go along. So I know what to do, I know what to say, and so again, when I did send my manuscript out, and I received a call, I sent my manuscript out to like over 100 publishers. And I was getting a lot of no's, a lot of slaps in the face. And then the day that I was going to give up, I was sitting on my patio one morning drinking coffee, and my phone rang, and it was an out-of-state number. And I thought, well, I usually don't answer that, but I'll answer this one. And it was a publishing, It was a publisher, and they wanted. They go, they thought I only had one book. When I told them I had 4 complete manuscripts, they were impressed.
Wow. I mean, it's just amazing. I'm sitting here with somebody that's just come from basically nothing. You didn't really know anything about books to just all of a sudden now here your book is globally and you got an agent, and I mean, everything is just going so well for you now. Just by sitting down and writing, starting to write something.
I keep my fingers crossed. I've been so lucky that way. And it's been my book that has opened the doors for me. People are noticing now the book, and I was recognized in my own supermarket. It was hilarious. And so I just take one step at a time with everything. Again, I've talked to so many people. I've been on TV shows in Canada, and I've got big Canadian following as well, which I love. I love my Canadians. I love my UK. I love everybody, but you just have the little special people that you keep in your heart because they're the ones that show you the most love.
Right, like me.
Exactly. Well, you are so funny. You were so funny because I had never spoken to you before at all. And I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning, I remember, to get, I would drink my coffee, wake up, and then get ready for work. And the first day that my book was released, the very first hour that it was released, you sent me a message. And it was such a positive message. And I thought, this is so nice. And I held on to that. And you followed with a couple more after time went on. And I thought, how wonderful, that I said, I'm going to keep her forever in my pocket. And now look at us.
Well, I just really appreciate it because I was so impressed by it when I first found out about it. And then, the page on Supernatural, the one page that I have for a group on Facebook, I agreed to post it on that page. But
you did.
It was so cool, and I just loved your whole approach to it. It wasn't just like you tried to go on and just put your own ad on there,
Right.
It was just wonderful, and I'm so glad that you're successful because I do know what it takes because I wrote 2 books myself. But I do know what it takes to be in your position and get a book published and have an agent and a publishing company, because that just doesn't happen. I mean, the odds of that are extremely difficult, and most of the time people don't even get to that level.
Exactly.
So congratulations.
Exactly. It's determination as well, because at what I did before I was even approached by an agent, I sat down I had to pick 2 days that I would social media, and that's all I would do is social media on those 2 days. Every Tuesday and Wednesday, I sat down with this gigantic list of where I could post my book, where I could send my book, where I could send the links, and I did that faithfully. And I think with my pushing, it went that far. That's after I got everywhere on the internet, everywhere globally. That's when I was approached by the agent.
Wow. So you just stuck with it and just kept rolling with it.
I did. Come what may, wherever the chips fall, I was ready to, again, jump head over heels. But I've been that way all of my life, like I was telling you earlier. I sang professionally one time in my life with an R&B group, and I left a job that I had, I was secure in my job and everything. I left everything to become a singer, and I remember my family being so upset with me.
Nice.
But I was successful at that too, and did it for quite a long time.
Nice.
And so I could say I have that under my belt as well. I've always been one to take chances.
Well, I know that you also will take chances. What about, I know you have some paranormal experiences that you were telling me about when we talked prior to taping today.
Of course, yeah, I was telling you that I did. I grew up haunted, terrorized, actually. It was terrorized. That's all I could summarize it in. When I was it started as far back as I can remember. My bed would be violently kicked. I had a twin bed, and it was as if somebody was kicking the end of it. And that happened from the time that I was 6 years old until I moved out of my parents' house at 18.
Dang.
Wow. Now, so you're talking about major poltergeist activity because that was the first thing that was going on. And then it continued because you lived in that house, but it kind of followed you everywhere from what I remember.
Exactly. Well, I thought once I grew up and moved out of the house that it was going to be the end, of the hauntings. And no, it followed me all throughout my whole life. As an adult now, and as your thought process is different. I'm not so much. I still get scared. Don't get me wrong, but I'm more apt to now question who is this? Why are they here? What's going on? Because if you can find the root of why they're still here or why they're still haunting, you can help them, and maybe it might just be a lost soul who needs to be moved to the light.
Right.
So I think of it that way, but I'm still scared. Yes. Don't get me wrong. I'm still shaking in my boots with all this. But as a child, I endured the footsteps, the breathing, the voices, dishes being thrown, appliances being turned on, doors being slammed, people screaming in my face. Literally, it sounded like one time I was really tired. It was in the morning. I had just woken up, and I don't know, I guess because I never slept in my parents' house, like a full night's sleep. I was in the den and on the rocking chair, and I started to fall asleep, and really loud screech right in my, you could tell when something's in your ear or something's in front of you. The screech was always in front of me. And that would jolt me out of, being sleepy. And I'd wake up and I'm like, okay, you got to be moving and this and that. I even, as a teenager, removed my bed from the frame and put my mattresses on the floor, and my mattresses still continued to shake. To be kicked.
Are you kidding? So, I mean, I'm not saying are you kidding, but this is major stuff. I mean, anytime, I know the story behind it because we spoke before, as I'm going to say again.
Right.
But the people out there don't really know the full story, but this is some serious business. You're talking about poltergeist activity, like Amityville horror type of stuff that was going on.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
How in the heck you deal with each situation? I mean, how did you get to a point where you are now in your life where you actually feel more comfortable about it or more passive about it?
So I feel okay as an adult. I'm different. That as a what happened to me as a child has extremely affected me as an adult now because I actually have night lights throughout the house so that my house is not dark. But as a child, I learned it doesn't matter if it's in the middle of the night. It can happen in the middle of the day. It started when I was a teenager, it started happening more in the daytime. I remember from the living room, there was a straight shot down the hallway, and then to the right was the bathroom. And I remember my parents had just left. They went to go shopping. It was a Sunday, and I was home. And there was no breeze outside, but yet my house filled with wind. And I remember looking down the hallway, and I could see the shadows of what looked like could have been a man, could not have been a man, and standing at the end of the hallway. And I remember I was 13 years old. I started yelling, "Go away, leave me alone." And the wind became stronger, and then the bathroom door slammed like about 3 times on its own, and then the wind stopped.
So during this time, did your parents ever experience any of this activity?
Oh, my entire family, actually. Well, now as an adult, as the stories are coming out, everybody's starting to speak up now. But when you're a 6-year-old child, how do your parents tell you, well, we're seeing ghosts too? I was always, calm down, because I would go to my parents screaming in the middle of the night and full of tears, and all they could do was calm me down. The night that I was actually touched, I was just, I was terrified. I don't even think I could speak. And I remember my dad, he was like, "Son, calm down." And he checked my back and he checked everywhere. And he's like, "Son, no, nothing is here." Here's talking to a 6-year-old. He's like, "Nothing is here." He said, "If something comes in, they got to get me first." And I remember thinking as a 6-year-old, oh, good, they're going to get my dad first and then I can run. And I think now as an adult, how funny is that? I would leave my dad under a bus, and so my parents, one night, they woke up to what sounded like claws under the hallway carpet. And the hallway carpet was actually rolling and slamming against the wall.
That most people don't experience this. I mean, what you're telling me right now is serious stuff. I mean, so continue on. I mean, I'm just wondering how did you live with this, and what, give us a few more events that happened. But then
sure. One thing I have to say in defense of my mom and dad. This was a young family. They were young, and we were all little kids. And so, you deal with this stuff at night and the horror, and then in the morning, it's, you're trying to make things normal again, and without upsetting the family because I think if they would have become upset and terrified or showed us terror, we would have been paranoid as well. And so, you get up in the morning, it's just regular schedule. You get ready for school, mom's making breakfast, you go to school throughout the day. But then, my mom, she is very level-headed. And so to hear her tell, her side of the stories, it becomes horrifying to me because she's the most level-headed person I know. She said my father, what his routine was, he got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, took a shower, and he was out the door by 5 for work. So, one morning my mom found him get out of bed, and she heard the bathroom door close, and the next thing she knows, he's crawling back in bed with her. And she thought, oh, he must not be feeling well, he's going to stay home. So he pressed up against her back and kept pressing to the point where she couldn't hardly breathe. So she turned around to find out what was going on with him. And when she turned around, there was a transparent face of a man that was laying in the pillow next to her.
Oh my God.
And my mom, of course, she screamed, and from then on, more stuff had continued to happen. I was 13 years old, and I was woken up. My bed shook, and I woke up. By 13 my mind frame with this was, I'm mad. I'm mad that this is happening. So I woke up in the middle of the night with my bed shaking, and I could hear people talking in the kitchen. And it sounded like two elderly couples. And the house was dark, and the lady kept saying, "Let me go get him. I'm gonna go get him.
Oh no.
Let me go get him." And the other people that were with her were going, "No, just sit down. You just," like they were just talking a normal conversation. Now, I couldn't tell what kind of accents they had. If I was to narrow it down, I would say probably between German, Polish, and Jewish, because they had slight accents.
Do you think that those particular individuals are the ones that are bringing all this activity on? That it's more than one, or do you think it's several different types?
I think it was many. I think we had, what are they? There's the ghoulish, I should say, the demon type hauntings,
right.
And then there's ghostly hauntings. And I think that we had both, because whatever touched me, I could feel the largeness of the hand, and with the nails, it almost felt like claws.
Like claws. So, okay, so your family, you found out when you were in this particular house, these events were going on. And you didn't speak to your family about what you were feeling, or they didn't tell you that they had it too until later in life?
Right. So as a child, again, how do you discuss that with your child? So they would just calm us down and then try to make life as normal as possible. So, you got to figure we're a young family. We're struggling, and it's not like they can just pick up, sell the house, and move to another house.
Right.
And so my parents, I guess, basically stood their ground and was like, we're gonna stay, so Ghost, you have to leave.
Right.
What happened to.
But it didn't leave.
No, it didn't. I was 17 years old, and me and my mother were in the den. Now, my mom was old school. She always, at her sink, she always had dishes draining, just washed in the dish rack.
Right.
And we were talking in the den, and we were having an argument, teenager and mom having a discussion. And all of a sudden, we heard like this big crash in the kitchen. So we ran in the kitchen. The dishes in the sink were thrown, but this is the odd thing. The dishes didn't just fall and collapse into the sink next to it. They all were thrown into the sink next to it, one over.
Oh, wow.
And while we were standing there trying to figure out how this happened, the dryer went on.
The dryer? Oh, you mean the clothes dryer?
The clothes dryer went on because I kept telling Mom, see, I told you I was becoming upset, and I was literally almost in tears. I'm like, I told you, this house hates me. And I was arguing with my mom, and Mom's like, calm down. And then boom, the dryer went on.
Well, okay, so living in that one house, you've had to deal with this, which can be debilitating to a child and as a teenager. I mean, it could affect you for the rest of your life.
And it did. It actually did.
So that could just, I mean, you're talking PTSD, right? I mean,
Yeah, right. Basically, yeah, basically what I suffered,
yeah.
and I still have that, as an adult. Again, I tell you, I have night lights in my hallway, in my office, in the spare bedrooms. I have one in the living room and in the dining room and the kitchen. So my house is never dark.
Now, okay, so after you grew up there, okay, well, let's just say when you grew up there, did they do anything like go to a priest or get a blessing on the house or anything, or was that just not really talked about and hush hush?
So my grandmother, God rest her soul, what she would do on Palm Sunday, she would go, and we would go to church to get our palms. They're blessed, because I was raised Catholic, and then she would shape them into crosses, and then she had us put each cross under our bed on the side that we slept in.
Did that help?
It helped a little bit. I think what it did is it kept them at bay.
Okay.
So even though that I wasn't touched anymore or pushed or screamed, they made themselves known. Things started happening early in the morning, with the footsteps. Now the footsteps sounded like as if someone was wearing large construction boots, wiping their feet at the door, and then walking very slowly down the hallway. And then it would come into my room, and it would literally walk around my bed. And now, if you place your hand in front of your face, you can feel that something is there, even if you
Right.
close your eyes. You can feel something that's invaded.
Oh yeah.
So I think what it would do is it would lean in, because I could hear breathing, the heavy breathing,
Yeah.
and it would be right in front of my face.
So okay, so that's the only thing that your grandmother did was the Palm Sunday and then put the cross under the bed. But you guys, your parents didn't find it necessary to have anything else done other than just try to live with this.
I
mean,
yeah,
it's amazing.
basically.
I mean, you're talking. It's just absolutely amazing. Now, what's the most? I'm just trying to figure out the word because I'm a little lost for words by hearing your story. But did it follow you? Didn't it follow you from that house? First of all, wait. Let me ask you this: did you ever do any history on the house that you lived in? Did anyone die there, or do you have any idea what went on prior to you moving into the house?
Actually, no. I have seen pictures of the house recently, but to go near it, I'm afraid that if I go, stop by and say, "Hey, I grew up here. Can I see the house?" I'm afraid that something will attach itself to me again from there. Um, but the history of the town, not the house, but the town in Rialto, California. There's something to do, and I have to investigate it a little more. Before it was even a town, there was something wrong with the land.
Oh.
And so that, from what I'm gathering, is other people have had other problems. Because even the lady that lived next door to us, in her house, the previous owner of that house had lost a baby, and in the middle of the night, they could hear a baby crying. And so I'm thinking that it was more so the ground itself and
Right.
not the house.
Right. So it could be built on Native American land or burial grounds.
Could be
or
something,
a
of course.
cemetery that they moved,
Yeah.
because one place that we were at, they actually were unearthing to do some construction to make the a bigger lots for the homes that they were going to build on there. And when they were doing that, they ran into all these coffins. So they just unearthed all these coffins that they didn't even know that were there. So it could be something, I mean, that happens a lot, so it could happen.
It does.
I mean, so now, so you really didn't know what to do there, so you just kind of lived with this and tried to cope as best as you can, and then you moved away from the house. So what happened after you moved away from the house?
So as I became an adult, you know, things would happen. My, how should I say this? Without sounding like Elizabeth Taylor, my first ex-husband, let's just put it that way. He was a wonderful man in the beginning. I always, you know, we always called him the gentle giant because he was like 6'6", and, you know, he was built, and, you know, he was just very, very nice. You know, I fell head over heels for him. But when we got married, and we did have a beautiful wedding, and, you know, it was a nice celebration, and I started having these dreams. And these dreams would be of the man watching me. And they were so real, and I wasn't scared of him. He would tell me, I'm gonna help you. You need to be careful. And I never knew what that meant. And I would tell him about these dreams, and he would push it off and just, you know, go on to another conversation. So the dreams started happening every night. And you know, I thought, well, maybe I'm just going crazy. Maybe I'm having a nervous breakdown. I can't believe this is happening again.
Oh my
And
God!
I started questioning myself.
Yeah, your own sanity, for God's sakes.
Right. And one day I decided to do some thorough cleaning. And hidden on top of a ledge, I found an 8x10 photo of the man that's been visiting me in my dreams.
No way.
And I'm like, how can this be? This is him. And so when my husband came home from work, I showed him, and he finally told me, he goes, well, that's who I was married to before you. He goes, and he died.
Oh my God, you gotta be kidding me.
So I'm like, well, he's here, and he kept saying, you're lying. I mean, he was actually upset with me. And I just, you know, out of frustration, I said, you know, if you're here, you let us know. You show him a sign, because he's mad at me. So there was only one way into our condo, and that was through the front door. We had a security gate. And I remember I was upset with him, and I went outside and sat on the patio, and he came outside. And, you know, he calmed me down. We talked, and, you know, you make out, blah, blah, blah. And so when we went to go back in the house, the door was locked. And so we thought it was just, you know, one of us had turned the little knob lock, and without us knowing, and we locked ourselves out. We had to call a locksmith. Well, the locksmith had to cut the door because it was the deadbolt that was locked. And there's only one way you can lock that, is if you're in the inside.
So what was the warning on this? Did you ever find out when?
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Of course. I continued to have the dreams, and he kept telling me, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to protect you. And I'm like, why? I was always questioning why. We ran into his family, and his family were very upset people, and they have started attacking verbally my husband. And he looked at me and goes, can you go to the car and wait for me? And I never knew what that meeting was about. Come to find out, through a little bit of private investigation, there was a mystery around this gentleman's death, because he shouldn't have died. And he died mysteriously. And guess who got his insurance money?
You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, and so that's what they were that's what they were upset about. So meanwhile, there was this, all from out of nowhere, there was this huge yellow butterfly that used to come around, and it would land on my hand, it would land on my shoulder, and I used to tell my ex-husband, that's him. He's protecting me. And I would tease him. Well, long story short, I guess it was my turn to meet my demise in his hands, because he tried to poison me. That didn't work. And then he just all out beat me. And for 2 hours, and I'm not a fighter, and I'm a pretty big guy, I just wasn't as big as him. And he was super strong. And he was so insistent. I remember he became so insistent that I turned my life insurance policy in his name, and I wouldn't do it. And so I lied to him and told him finally, yes, I did it. And after that night, he beat me for 2 hours.
Okay, so this is your
ex-husband. Yeah.
So you were, yeah, exactly. That's pretty funny. So
yeah.
You were warned after you were with this gentle giant, as you call him. He doesn't sound so gentle to me.
No, it was like, he started showing his true colors eventually. And, going through the beatings, you always think this can't happen to me. And I tried reaching out to organizations. This is what's happening to me, please help. And they all turned me away. And so, you feel so alone with that. But, however, I remember whatever that was around me was protecting me. It went from haunting me to protecting me, because I would get calls from him at work in a panic. And he was saying, I'm going to leave the house, stuff is flying off the walls and hitting me.
Oh, so then the activity from this particular individual that had passed on his side started to haunt him on his side, but was for you. So the spirit actually had a vendetta against your ex-husband. Yeah. And then so things started happening with him, poltergeist activity, to scare him shitless. Right?
Exactly. He said it started with, he went to grab the toothpaste to brush his teeth, and the toothpaste flew off the counter against the wall. And he thought, well, maybe I just knocked it off. And as he was walking through the bedroom sconces came off the wall and were flying at him. Stuff off the kitchen counter was flying at him. And he said he couldn't stay in that house alone anymore. And he, it's sad, but for one little split second, he sounded so pitiful when he was terrified.
Well, he should be terrified for what he did to you. So, did he leave? I mean, how did you get him out? I mean, this continued. Did he ever get hurt? I mean...
Well, at one point in time, we were sitting there, and by this time, at the end of our marriage, and I'm trying to hang on to all the straws, and make things work. He had just thrown the remotes at me. And I was crying. I was like, you are so hateful. And just as I said that, his chair that he was sitting in, it wasn't a rocker. This wasn't a rocker chair. It was a stationary chair. It was as if someone behind him pushed the chair forward.
Wow.
Yeah, like as hard as they could.
And so, did he evacuate the house quickly?
No, it all came to an end that night that he, beat me for 2 hours and left me in a bloody pool. And I'm laying there in front of, glass and broken frames and everything. The police came and got him. And the police, he was trying to turn the tables. He ran and got the police and said that I was trying to kill him. So here he leaves me after he's beat my head into the wall where picture frames and everything, there's glass everywhere. The police come in and they're like, oh God. They said he did this. It took 5 police to take him down.
Oh my God, because he's 6'6".
Yeah, and it was huge.
So
And
did he actually get convicted?
so what they did is the state of California, pressed charges because it's for spousal abuse.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it, the California will, and they did. I had pictures, you go through the whole ugly mess of, them taking the pictures, they're questioning you just want to go and die somewhere, but it all came to an end, and I never saw him again.
Well, so you're very grateful. Now, is that spirit still around you, his ex-husband?
So I don't know if it's still with him. It's so funny because every now and again I'll see the butterfly, and I always say thank you when I see that yellow butterfly, no matter where I'm at. And I did see it recently here in Nevada. And again, I'm remarried. We've been together 14 years, and he's wonderful. And so we've had our own experiences. Now, my current husband is such a non-believer, and he always thinks that I'm crazy coming up with all these stories. I'm like, no, this really happens. When you're trying to tell somebody, no, I was touched. They're like,
exactly, yeah, right. Or they think you're psychotic, or that
you have to be careful.
Like
they
say, were you drunk, or are you on serious meds, or did you just get out of the lunatic asylum?
we had an incident where I believe someone left something in our house, just out of hate and spitefulness. And I kept telling him something as, I started getting the footsteps, and feeling like someone was in front of my face. And it got to the point where I actually put a digital camera under my pillow one morning while I was making the bed. And I thought, once that, in the middle of the night, if it starts happening again, I'm just going to start snapping pictures.
Yeah.
And so it did, and I did. I caught a face. There was a face up in the corner of the wall in the darkness.
Oh, there was.
And
this wasn't your face. It was other people that lived in the house prior to you?
No, actually, I don't know. Actually, the history of this house. But when you can tell generally a house's presence when you walk into it.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's your house or a friend's house or whoever house. And the house felt so clean to me. The atmosphere was very open and free. That's how it feels. But when this person, who we thought was a friend, did what they did, that's when everything became dark. My pets were going through trauma, and all this stuff was happening. One night we were laying in bed, and we were just, you go to bed, regular time, and we heard a crash in the bathroom. And so I got up to see what it was, and there was a hairspray bottle that was thrown into the sink. And so it's like, my husband's name is Mitch. I'm like, Mitch, I said, this was not close to the sink. He goes, you probably left it and didn't realize it. Basically it's my fault. I'm like, no, seriously, I'm going to place it on the opposite side, far away from the sink. So we get back in bed, 15 minutes later, boom, you hear the same hairspray bottle. So he gets up, and he's like, you didn't place it far enough. I'm like, no, I swear, I'm over there trying to defend myself, but it was like, I give up. Mm-hmm. So he puts the hairspray bottle in the drawer, gets back in bed. Now, those heavy scented candles with the big rubber seals?
Yes.
And they're pretty tight on there when you push the lid in.
Right.
So we have one on our dresser. So right as he gets back into bed, we get comfortable. That lid popped off and flew over the bed.
Okay, so did he finally believe you then?
Then he goes, oh my God. He's like, no, we got to get the house blessed. He was all panicky. I'm like, I was the one coming in. I'm like, I've been telling you.
Yeah, exactly.
This is going on.
So he finally believed you.
Right, and we did. We had the house blessed. We had ourselves blessed, and all activity went away. Evil activity, I should say.
What?
There are people that are around me. My birth father, who I had a adult relationship with, I believe he is with me. My grandmother is with me. There's been several occasions where I get like a small breeze in the scent of her perfume. That's how I know she's there. My birth father actually comes and visits me in dreams. And so at one point in time, me and my, as siblings, you guys fight and argue. And I was having a disagreement with my oldest sister, to whom I adore. But at that time, we were fighting for some odd reason, and I hadn't spoken to her in a long time. My dad came to visit, and he's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" He's like, "Your sister needs you, and you need to call her tomorrow." I mean, he was very demanding. So I called her, and her and my mom had just been diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh my gosh.
And so I thought, okay, well, we'll never fight again. So it's been almost 10 years with them, or a little over 10 years, and they're cancer free, thank God.
Well,
knock on wood.
Thank God for that.
Yeah.
So does your now, since the candle, I mean, has anything major happened, or it's all pretty much calmed down after your experiences with the candle jar and the hairspray? He believed you. You had someone come in and bless the house, bless yourselves, and all activity is calmed down?
Calmed down to the point where the entities, I believe, are not evil, because we all have spirits around us. I believe there's your guides, there's your angels, they're all around us. I believe that what is around me now is for the good,
right?
And not to harm.
That's absolutely fantastic. But it took you all the way up to this point in your entire life, which is going to cause, PTSD, to finally really get you learn to manage and deal with this on your own, in your own way, and now you're pretty comfortable with it and know what is not right and what feels right. So you're finally in a place of peace with it.
Right. So you pay attention to your atmosphere. Pay attention to the cold spots. Pay attention to the scents. Because if there is something that is there to do harm to you or to your family, you're going to feel that and follow your intuition. That is going to be your best part. Please follow the intuition. Sometimes you can feel cold spots in the house, and they'll move from room to room, or you can smell foul odors in your house that shouldn't be there.
Right.
And so...
Good advice. To recognize. So what would you tell somebody that, let's just say, that is actually going through this? What would you tell them to do? Have the house blessed? Or you're saying pay attention to your intuition, smells, probably even taste, maybe on some level, right?
I would, I'm not so sure about taste. That never happened to me. More or less, mine is with the scents and with the cold spots. It's funny because in the house that I grew up in, my sister's rooms, their room was in complete sun all day, and should have been the warmest room in the house, technically. That room, I think, is probably where the center of everything was, because that room was always freezing cold.
Right.
And my sister, who passed, she passed, but God rest her soul, she used to, now, when this was going on with me as a kid, she was having dreams of a woman in a black dress. that would come and visit her at night. And when my sister finally grew up and moved, she would tell my mom, and my mom would listen to her. So I never knew this. And when I was turned 17, I started having the dreams of the woman in the black dress coming to visit me.
Wow. So the same thing. I mean, what an amazing story. I remember, I do know what it's like to go through that, but I can't imagine this actually going on for an entire lifetime, because when it's happened to me, I mean, I just can't imagine it happening over and over. I lived in one home, and in this one home, it was very, very bad, like you're talking about. And it was so bad to the point that we actually had to move out. Even with my knowledge of knowing what to do and trying to figure out how to do it, it still wouldn't go away. An exorcism on the house, a blessing, nothing was working. So when you go through all of those things that you've done and you're helpless, you have to leave. I mean, you didn't get to leave. We left. The funny thing is Joey, we left on really bad circumstances, because to break a lease, okay, if you're renting in a home, was very hard, but we did get an attorney and we were able to break the lease. But when we left, and I left in a hurry. I mean, I packed that place up and I was ready to go, because it wasn't gonna change.
Exactly.
Even with as much knowledge as I had. I left a small business card on top of an upper closet. It was pretty high up on like a shelf, but it was way up, so a lot of people wouldn't really see it. But I said, if something happens to the next individuals that move in here, then they'll see my card. Well, lo and behold, they contacted me 2 months later. And the woman was telling me that she was having all of these issues with her daughter getting scared at night and all of the activity that was gone in there. I found out from the neighbor, because I visit her every once in a while, that they moved out after 3 months. So they were only there 1 more month after I told them my story. And to get out of that house, they left within another month. So he actually only rented his house for 2 months and probably stuck in a year lease, but they left.
Wow.
So I know what you're talking. Yeah. Sometimes you can't do anything about it on where you're
No,
going.
I believe that whatever was there in that house was so embedded and so deep. I don't think that it could have been cleansed. I don't think that what was around at that time could have been taken out because of how strong the hauntings were.
I agree with you. Sometimes you cannot, there's nothing that you can do about it. I mean, I remember when I was selling my house in Arizona, and my deceased husband, he had just died about 6 months prior to that. And I remember the cupboards starting to slam back and forth and things moving around the house. And I knew he was angry because I was selling the house.
Right.
So, but I know when I left, he was attached to the house. It wasn't going to follow me. Now, that's in my experience with it, that was a blessing to be able to leave and not have been followed. You've been followed.
Right.
And finally at peace with it. So I think that this is a great interview for all of you out there to hear all the wonderful things that we can do about it, and which is pretty much leave or deal with it. And Joey has a lot of great information for you. And I think I did. Sometimes it's just, the bottom line is, guys, is you got to escape, you got to leave. Or you got to try whatever modality you think is the right thing to do.
You'll feel it. You'll feel it. And I recommend that pay attention to what's around you in the atmosphere. There's sometimes that you can't fight it head on. And you'll need that blessing. Don't be too afraid that people are going to think you're crazy, because this is happening more and more. It's just that everybody's coming out with it now, and it's more prevalent because it does exist. It does exist, and just as much as I've had, my dealings with the bad entities and the hauntings, I've had my just as much run-ins with angels and angelic things happening to me as well.
Right. So you're an empath, and you get messages all the time.
Correct.
So that's probably who also helped you write your book.
Probably could be.
Yeah,
Probably. And I just learned not to question. I learned not to question things anymore.
Right, you just do it as you go. Well,
exactly.
I want everybody to know about where they can find your book. So let's take it slow on that one. Don't just all of a sudden shoot it out a million miles an hour.
Okay.
Take it slow and let everybody know, where they can find this book. And
sure. Actually, if you can Google the Crone Book One by author J.M. Smith. You can find it there. You can find it at Walmart.com, BarnesandNoble.com. If you want to read my reviews, go to Goodreads and Google. I've got 5-star reviews. You can hit me up on my Facebook, which is author J.M. Smith, or my Instagram, author J.M. Smith 6598. I'll be glad to send you a book. Just hit me up, and that'll be wonderful. And I can even autograph that for you.
Okay, so how is a Crone spelled, though?
It's spelled, the name Crone is spelled Crone.
Okay.
And she was actually a real figure in my life. She was a real woman. It was just my 3 and 4-year-old perception of her, but she was well over 100 years old. And how I describe her in the book is how she actually lived.
Wow. Well, what an interview today. I mean, this has just been absolutely fantastic. I mean, I don't want to be rude to anybody else out there that I've interviewed, but it's just gone so naturally and just so peacefully. And the communication that we've had and your story that you've had to tell is absolutely amazing. And I really believe that it can help other people that don't want to talk about this. And I just want to tell you, first of all, I really appreciate it and very grateful that you came on today. And,
thank you for having me. Thank you.
And I am so grateful to you for that and your story, because I do think it's going to help other people on some way or another. I mean,
I hope it does.
Even about the writing. I mean, someone who doesn't know what to do with their life and is stuck. I mean, about hearing your story about, writing, hearing about how you dealt with this, and they're not the only ones. So I think we just hit on so much different subject matter that it's something, somebody's going to be able to pull something from this.
I hope so. Today. I hope so. And if you are afraid to go, if you're listening to this and this is happening to you, and you're afraid to go to anybody else, contact me. I will help you.
Right.
Don't be afraid to reach out. I think if I would have had someone who I could have reached out to, it would have been an easier transition. But unfortunately, I had to travel the road that I traveled. And,
right. And you guys can also do with me on Facebook, Paranormal Extraction, and you just send me an email. It's that quick. And if you want to if you can't get a hold of Joey, you can always send a question on how do I get a hold of Joey, and I'll make it work one way or the other. So have at it.
I will look forward to it.
Yes. So it's been a beautiful interview. And I just want to say one more time, just let everybody know where to find your book before we end our wonderful session. And just so they didn't catch it the first time, because I don't think they could have spelled it Cronn or Coar.
Or with a K, yeah.
Yes. So go ahead and spell that out, and then give them your information again on being such successful.
It's called the Crone Book One. And Crone is spelled Crone. You can Google that. Find me on Walmart.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Goodreads. Once you pull that up on Google, you'll be able to see everywhere that the book is gone. Again, you can contact me on my Facebook, which is author J.M. Smith. You can also Instagram me. which is Author James Smith 6598, or you can even email me, which is boymorkie, MORKIE, the number 1, at gmail.com.
Well, that gives us plenty of information, and so I am going to close with that. This was an absolutely fabulous interview today. I hope you guys like my pants and my shoes. I always have to have, my certain outfits on. And I hope you've enjoyed me today too.
Oh, immensely. And Zoe, you're a friend for life. I just adore you. And thank you again for having me on. And it was such a wonderful interview.
Well, I don't even think we're friends on Facebook. I think we just do it all by text. So you're gonna have to friend me, or I'll just instant message you, and then we can go from there. So anyways, thank you so much for Joey for having you come on today. I'm at a loss for words on how well this went, and we will say over and out, and thank you so much for watching and listening.
Oh, well, thank you again for having me. It was wonderful.
Fantastic.